Hey guys and girls, welcome to the channel. As you may or may not know, I hadn't really worked on anybody's cars at this shop except for Shannon across the street. I financed him a truck. I've helped him work on it a little bit, and just mine and my son's cars and a finance car or two and my trucks or whatever. But this is Tina's car. It's a G37S, and she's got the water lines leaking and stuff. Well, Tina's helped me tremendously on the rentals. When I first got the rentals, I didn't have a clue, and she helped me, gave me some information, and helped me with some evictions and stuff like that. And I've got some more stuff coming up. She's helping me with a couple of the really bad one. She's helping me with that as far as getting those people to court and do all that stuff. Well, as a favor to her, she's got water leak, and it's pretty bad, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead, and she's got all the stuff. I'm gonna do her oil change, rotors, brake pads, fix that water leak, and get the coolant straightened out on her G37, which is a convertible. It's an S. You don't see many of these. It's actually surprising. I hadn't seen one of these in forever. But a G37S, we're gonna be hunting a water leak, brakes and rotors, and oil change on this thing. So, all right, here we go. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is I don't know how much coolant's in it. I know she drove it with a leak in some, but I'm gonna go ahead and just put water in it, top it off with water, close the lid to the coolant, and then we'll run it a little bit, let it heat up or whatever it needs to do to leak, so I can find the leak, and that way it don't overheat while I'm letting it run, because I don't know how much coolant's in it. So let's get some water in it, and you don't have to use any antifreeze or coolant. It's one of those where the cheapest is the best right now, because whatever we put in, it's coming right back out. We don't have to worry about draining antifreeze. Any type of coolant, we just put water in it, because it's coming right back out. Literally though. It doesn't sound like we're going to have to run it, because I hear it leaking. It's all down the back of the motor, so maybe that rear hose. We'll get it up there and we'll look. So, all right, I think I found our leak. So, check it out. You'll come up in the car here, right up to where the battery is, and come right across. There's a yellow fitting right there. And what I'll do is I'll add some coolant in, some water. Just keep an eye. See, as I'm adding coolant, that's where it's leaking, and that's right there. And now I'm actually adding coolant right over here. And that's where it leaks at. Alright, so this is new to me. I've never changed this particular part. I think she got some hoses, but I think it's possibly that it's the little black connector. Looks like just a fitting. It connects two hoses, a plastic one. Looks like it's broke, so I'll take it apart and see if that's what it is. If not, maybe the hose, she may have what we need, and if not, I'll make it like it's just a hose. I can get it from parts store. All right, here we go. All right, so I literally turned the camera off, set it down, and come over here just kind of looking at what it is. All right, so this is kind of what's going on here. Is, let me get my hand in here. This piece is completely just broke in half, so that it's connector. It's just a straight through PVC connector, plastic, whatever it is, and it's just broken in the middle. So I'm gonna have to dig the plastic out of each piece and then replace it. May have to take that rear hose off and this front hose to be able to get that out of there. I may be able to, but I don't know yet. So that's what we got. So it's not just a blown hose. It's a little more involved. All right, here we go. All right, so on the G37S, on that hose, it's a little barb fitting, but it's got a center piece like a ring, and it's barbed on both sides, so that way you get the exact same amount, because on a barb fitting you push too much of a hose on one side and not enough on the other. So it's got a center divider to mark where center is to make sure you get evenly both hoses on there. So evidently there's two sizes to that, and so I've got to measure it out and make sure we get the correct size, and I guess we'll have to order that. But I got to do the brakes and rotors and oil change and stuff on this, so I'll have time, and plus we're drifting this weekend. I wasn't going to do all this today on this car anyway. So we'll get that ordered, and I don't know that I'll do anything else on this car today. I still got to load my G35 to go to the drift track. So we may do this on another day. So I'll get you some footage of that when we get back on it. So, all right, here we go. All right, so we're back on the G37. I went ahead and took the front wheels off, and I got to looking through the car. I probably should have done that first. The only thing I found was the back brake pads and the rear rotors. No e-brakes, no front rotors or pads. So I'll make sure that they only want to do the back rotors and pads. And we're going to go ahead and start draining the oil to do the oil change on this. And so this is oil change on a G37. I think it's an S, but it don't matter. Even the 350Zs are this way, the G35's this way. It's pretty much the same on any of those platforms. So if you want to do a oil change on 350Z, G35, G37, 370Z, I'm assuming it's probably the same too, because I think that's the same motor in the G37 as a 370Z. So, all right, here we go. We're under the car. So this is the front bumper, and you come back probably arm's length. Depends on the length of your arms, but roughly the plastic's hanging down. This car's that way. I'll look, see if I can't doctor it up a little bit. But arm's length under the bumper, closer to the passenger side, and we'll move to there. So that's where my hand was. All right, and so there is your oil filter. See the blue? There's your oil filter, and there's your drain plug. And so again, I go back out to the front of the engine. So I'm arm length to the end of this, where this seam you see right here, and you'll find your oil filter. Okay, and that's an STP oil filter. That's the ones I run. And here's going to be the drain plug, and I think it's like a 14 or something. And so let me grab a wrench, and we'll start taking that loose. Okay, so if this is your first oil change on one of these cars, all right, see how the wrench is facing down? This is a ratchet wrench, so ratcheting goes backwards that way. And I'm actually going to be pulling forward to get this drain plug to break loose. So we're going to be pulling this way. All right, so I got my oil drain tank ready. And so before you actually start breaking everything loose, you want to confirm, if you can, what that oil filter is. It looks like a 6607, I'm pretty sure, and I think I've got that. So always do that. Make sure you have the correct oil filter, because if this is the only vehicle you got, you're going to end up stuck somewhere if you're doing this at your home or something, and you don't want to be, you know, this is the only vehicle you've got and you're stuck, you know, with no oil in your car. Okay, so I got my drain pan. It shouldn't be super tight. Kind of keeping in mind how tight it was when you took it off. That way you can kind of judge how it goes back on, how tight it should be. And yeah, so wherever I'm at. There we go. You're gonna try to catch your oil plug if you can. Mine has got a screen in it. It won't go no further than just right here, but sometimes they'll go further than that. So you're gonna try to catch it if you can. And you always, if you have a magnetic drain plug, check it out and see if there's anything on it. Kind of watch and see if there's anything that stands out in the top of the oil. As it's draining, get a light and kind of shine down in here and see if there's any kind of metal debris or any kind of sparkling going on in your oil. You can actually, I'm gonna let mine down here and I can see it's dirty. Doesn't appear to have anything, any debris or anything in it. It's just dirty, really, really dirty. So you want to drain it as long as you can. The more oil you can get out of the dirty stuff, the better off it is, the way I see it. All right, if you're an oil change guy and you always use the same, like the kit that fits over the end of the oil filter or some of those things, and you do, let's say you do several oil changes, this right here is a handy tool. I can use this on several vehicles. Some of your harder to reach ones, it literally locks on and you can usually get a pretty good bite on them. That'll turn your oil filter when a lot of stuff won't. So that's a good purchase. I've had these things forever. Guy used to work for me, works at oil change place, and he told me to get these. They're kind of pricey. I'm forgetting, like $30 or so. But they're like just a big old pair of channel locks, and these are handy. The ends have they're like curved and sharp, so they'll bite into the oil filter. If you can get it in there and get it around it and get a little bit of pull to it, you can get it out. So you back that thing off, and these being sideways, you can back it out and let it start draining. And if you think there's something going on with your engine, you can buy these tips where you cut your oil filter off. You actually set your oil filter down in it, and it's got like a blade and it cuts around the end and cuts the top off your oil filter. That way you can inspect the actual contents of that oil filter. That's what a lot of your performance guys do. They will actually open their oil filter and see, what they're finding in their filter, because it'll filter any metal particles, any of that stuff, and kind of give you an idea of what your car is doing. And you can actually, if you're getting fuel, like if you're running super rich, you can smell fuel in your oil sometimes. So if you smell fuel while you're doing an oil change, like in the oil, you can tell if it's in the oil. You're running rich, so you have to watch that. Maybe you need an O2 sensor if you got a check engine light. Seem to be burning a lot of fuel. There's several things it could be. Leaky injectors, several things. So kind of keep that in mind too if you drain your oil and it ends up being a fuel smell. So all right, we're gonna go ahead and spin this the rest of the way back. And there's a mess. So we confirm my oil filter, 6607, and I do have that, so I was correct on that. All right, so when your oil's still draining and you got your oil filter off, you can get you a little bit of the old oil, and you can go straight back with the filter. On the filters that are sideways, like these, you can't really put oil in them and get them up here because you're just gonna dump it right out. So make sure you got oil on the rim. So take the old oil, put it on the rim. You can use new oil, it'll work too. And you make sure there's no debris or an old gasket on this, on the oil filter housing. You always make sure there's no leftover. This rubber gasket can come off and stick up there, and I've seen that happen. And what ends up happening is you end up double gasket, and then it will actually leak. So you don't get a lot of oil out of that, a little bit from the filter housing. So you can just go right back with this. And on these, you don't want to go crazy tight. I mean, you really, if I can get a hold of it, right there, should be good. So we'll let that drain some more. We'll be ready to put our plug in it. And we always check our drain plug, always check our crush washer. This thing's pretty flat. We'll inspect it a little bit. I think it's still okay. I think it'll still good. But I'll get over here and I'll look a little closer. On there, there's a, so when you check your crush washer, right here, there's actually a washer right there and it's smashed flat. And so that, when you tighten that, that smashes and that seals this bolt. And that's what keeps your oil from coming out. So if that crush washer, it's aluminum or a copper, not a copper, yeah, copper, aluminum or a copper washer. Do not use brass or just a metal washer. It needs to be aluminum or copper where it actually will squish and seal that around that, the hole where the oil actually drain plug goes. Okay, so I guess it calls for like 5.2 quarts, so it's like 5 quarts and 4 ounces, something like that. And so like a 530 or 1030, depending on what you like to run. So we'll put the majority of this, the 5-quart jug, and we'll put the majority of this in. And once we get it in, we'll crank the engine, let it run for just a second, and let it get oil in the filter. And then we will recheck it and top it off as needed. Alright, so there's just a hair left in here. I did fill it up past the 5-quart mark. Put the dipstick back in. I like having the dipstick on the front of the engine instead of the, like the 350Zs, where they are really hard and difficult to get to here. And as you're adding your oil in, you can go ahead and start checking for leaks. Make sure that you didn't leave something loose, or you need to tighten something more, or if you've got an issue. Everything looks good, so we'll go ahead and give her a crank. Now on this one, you heard it kind of idle, a little funky and all that. I'm still waiting on coolant to get all that line full. So it seemed a little loud or a little different than what yours sounds. Remember, I've got the coolant line taken apart and there's no coolant in this section. The radiator has it and there's some in the motor. It's just not through the heater core and through the top lines. It's in the lower part of the radiator, and the engine itself hasn't been drained or anything, so it's just a heater hose back here in the back. So what we'll do now is we'll give it a second to settle down. We'll check it, see what we need to do. Either we need to add some, or we should be good. All right, so far one thing I like better on the HR motors is the ease of access to the dipstick and stuff. You don't have this crazy, you know, fish down through there dipstick for the to check the oil or whatever. So this is much easier, much more convenient, and we'll get some oil gathered up and we will figure out what the capacity is. I think it might be 5 or 6 quarts. I need to figure it out. Okay, so I end up having to put about another half a quart or so in it after I ran it. Yeah, so what ends up happening is the filter eats a little bit, so you end up, you know, losing. So it ends up being about 5.5 quarts. So if you're buying your oil for G37, G35, 350Zs, you might as well go ahead and get 6 quarts, so you'll end up into that 6 quart more than likely, or you'll be pretty close into it, and that gives you a little left over in case, you know, you have oil leak, or if it's using a little oil or something, that gives you some excess to kind of have extra. So so there's the oil change. Now on to the next thing.
I'm feeling high.